Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I was actually at a wedding, and man, I feel old. My wife's cousin's son, I consider him my nephew. I've known him since he was 2 years old. Guess what? He's now 30 and he just got married. So I feel kind of old, but it was a great weekend. Great to see him and be at his wedding and celebrate with him and see family and friends back in my hometown, my beloved city of Philadelphia. But now I'm back. I'm back in Texas. And I'll tell you, the U.S. is back when it comes to peace through strength, defending American interest. I could go on, but it's been a glorious 2 months, in my view, for the Trump administration. That includes with reasserting American dominance over our enemies who are sworn to not only the destruction of America, but also of Israel and of the entire free world. Let's start with the Houthis of Yemen. Now, under Joe Biden, the Houthis were really running roughshod. And you would think, and you might say, and you wouldn't be wrong, by the way, hey, it's a ragtag group of terrorists in the deserts of Yemen. They're not a big deal, but they have become a very big deal because this ragtag group of terrorists and jihadis are controlling ballistic missiles and attack drones that can reach not only the entire region, including Israel, and which have killed people in Israel, but shipping. They're positioned, they're perched on the Red Sea, one of the world's most crucial waterways. And so they've essentially shut the Red Sea down and the Suez Canal region. They've had a great impact there where I think it's 70% of shipping has now been diverted, and they're trying to find another route all the way around the south of Africa to escape and to avoid the Houthis. Not only are they terrorists, they were engaging in acts of piracy. And it became a massive problem. And here's the key. No one wanted to do anything about it. That includes the Biden administration, that includes Western Europe, who are most affected by it. And look, the US and the UK formed an alliance to deal with the Houthi problem in Yemen. Guess what? It was strictly a defensive alliance. It's not just me saying it. Don't take my word for it. Take the words of the Biden administration and the UK. Their representatives continuously were saying, hey, it's purely a defensive action. We're not going to go on the offense. We're just, if they hit us, we'll hit them back, but that's it. I mean, and you wonder why the Houthis have been emboldened. Hello. Not only that weakness, but one of Joe Biden's first acts in office was to remove the Houthis from the designated terror list. Now, it's yesterday's paper, as they say, right? Joe Biden's gone, President Trump's in, but you have to understand the past, the recent past, to understand the present situation. And the present situation is this. Breaking news here. The United States carried out at least 10 massive airstrikes today, Monday, March 24th, against Houthi positions in northwestern Yemen. This follows on the heels, it's been what, about 2 weeks now, of the U.S. hammering the Houthis in Yemen. After a year and a half of playing defense and not targeting any Houthi leaders, which is really the key, right? You got to hit the head of the snake, or take the head off the snake, I should say. Go right to the leadership. Well, finally, the United States, under different leadership on our end, is doing that. Imagine that. And the Houthis are feeling the heat. And what you see, I think now, and yet it's like a fire hose coming out of Yemen right now. They're still launching missiles into the Red Sea. They're launching ballistic missiles at Israel, including one just a few hours ago. I'm coming to you around 10 after 4:10 p.m. Central Time in the United States. The Houthis just launched another missile a few hours ago at Israel. But they're not doing this from a position of strength where they're ascendant. These are last gasps, perhaps, of the Houthis, where the noose is tightening around their necks. And they're going to go out in a blaze of glory. And they're all about martyrdom and jihad. I've read their slogan here. Death to America, death to the Jews, death to Israel, victory to Islam. There's actually a curse upon the Jews. That's their official motto. And it extols martyrdom as well. So you're dealing with fanatics, the most fanatical of fanatics in the form of the Houthis. So don't expect them to go quietly into the good night, or should I say, the very flame-filled night, as the U.S. continues to strike them and strike them hard. This is another level. But look, this could be a slogan for our show. Talk about slogans. Evil is relentless, right? Evil is arrogant. Evil is foolish. And the Houthis check all those boxes. But the relentless nature of evil, it's really easy to see. Why? Because it's demonically driven. It's not brain surgery. If you know that we're locked in a spiritual battle larger than the geopolitical, then you understand. Because the average person says the Houthis were just, walloped by the U.S. They've been walloped by Israel over the past 6-7 months. Why are they still firing ballistic missiles? Are they crazy? Do they want to die? Perhaps. Not so sure about the leaders, but certainly they have no hesitation in sending the foot soldiers to die. They have a death wish, quite literally. Now, the leaders will hide out, but they've got legions of jihadis who will do their bidding, who are cannon fodder, essentially, but they can launch a missile. So that's where you're at right now. The demonic nature of it. And we've said this as well. If the Houthis aren't firing missiles, what are they doing? Who are they? They're not the Houthis anymore, right? If Hamas lays down its weapons, if Hezbollah lays down its weapons, if the Iranian regime suddenly moderates, then who are they? What's their identity? Their whole rationale for being is to kill, maim, murder, destroy. That's who they are. It's what they do. If you take that away, who are they? So, of course, they're not going to stop firing. It's who they are. So don't expect the Houthis to wave a white flag. Expect them to have to, much like, look, evil regimes throughout history, they need to be pummeled into submission and decisively defeated. We're seeing it right now in Gaza as well with Hamas. Demonic death cults have to be utterly destroyed. There's no negotiation. There's no half measures. Why do you think God told Saul and was so upset with Saul when he did not utterly destroy the Amalekites, for instance? And why he was so utterly upset with the people of Israel, the ancient Israelites, when they did not utterly destroy the pagan tribes in the promised land? Because these were pure evil, corrupt, demonic people. And you don't let them retain a foothold. You crush them decisively, and you reconsecrate the ground that's been cursed. And I believe that's what we're in the process of seeing right now in Yemen. Here's more on what the U.S. has accomplished in recent days in Yemen under new leadership. Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, says that key Houthi leaders have been taken out, including their top missile expert. Sounds a bit like what Israel has done with Hamas and Hezbollah over the months. The Houthis have not confirmed this, although they have a history of downplaying their casualties, surprise, surprise, while they inflate their claims about their attacks on U.S. warships. Here's Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor for President Trump. We've hit their headquarters. Quote, we've hit communications nodes, weapons factories, and even some of their over-the-water drone production facilities. An apparent U.S. strike on Sunday hit a building in a neighborhood west of Yemen's capital, Sana'a, and caused a lot of damage. And strongholds like Hodeidah, that's the same Red Sea port city that Israel has hit a few times over the months, Marib province, home to oil and gas fields, and Sada, another stronghold of the Houthis. So the U.S. is going to work now. And this reminds me, it's so similar to 2016, 17, 18. Barack Obama, from 2013, 14 till 2016, he left office early 2017, thank God. But in those years, same exact stuff with ISIS. ISIS was on the march, and Obama was carrying out limited strikes against ISIS and half measures, not going all in. And guess what? ISIS was emboldened and they grew in strength. The same has happened over the past 4 years with the Houthis in Yemen. And then along came Donald Trump, 2017, And promise made, promise kept. He crushed the ISIS caliphate in short order. Wow. What a difference strong, decisive leadership makes. After Barack Obama is, twisting in the wind or keeping the world twisting in the wind with ISIS for 3 years. And now in Yemen, Trump comes on into office, strong, decisive leadership, vision, boom. The Houthis are hit and hit hard where it counts, not just defensive actions, not just, well, we're just going to kind of patrol the waters of the Red Sea. And if the Houthis fire a drone, we'll shoot it down. And we'll carry out an airstrike against a factory where no one's there, and just to say we did something. That's how it was. No wonder the Houthis continued. Look at the numbers here, or listen to the numbers, I should say. Folks, get this. And it really intensified after the October 7th massacre. Between November 2023 and January 2024, the Houthis had targeted more than 100 merchant vessels, sinking 2 and killing 4 sailors. They also launched attacks against U.S. warships. And the attacks only escalated. And the U.S. was impotent under the previous regime. They shot down some drones and they intercepted a few missiles. That's great. But you got to go to the source. You got to go to the head of the snake. As Michael Waltz broke down, the National Security Advisor, the U.S. is now doing that. And it's steady and it's frequent and it's unrelenting. And the Houthis are scrambling. Now, it's not to say they can't still fire a ballistic missile. Listen, Yemen's vast desert, mountainous, rugged terrain. Easy to hide out there, caves, etc. So don't be shocked that even though they're being thumped like they've never been thumped before, that they still have the capability to fire off a few missiles, perhaps even some drones at Israel, at shipping in the Red Sea. Look at how hard Israel has thumped Hamas and Hezbollah. Yet they still have the capability, few and far between these days, but they are still able to squeeze off some rocket volleys. And we just saw that in the past few days out of Gaza, Lebanon. More on that in a minute. But things are trending in the right direction when it comes to the Houthis. Not for the Houthis, but for the free world. They're trending very much in the right direction because we now have committed, strong, bold leadership in the White House. We have the same in Israel, I believe. And both parties are committed to destroying the Houthis and destroying the Houthis' capability to ever harass shipping ever again and to continue to fire at Israel. You ask if the Houthis have a death wish? Indeed, they do. This is the sick, suicidal martyrdom ideology of jihadis. They're of the Shia variety, but the Sunni variety shares it. Really two sides of the same coin. Theological, ideological differences for sure, in terms of tactics as well, but same end game, really. But I mentioned the Houthis too, kind of the last man standing for Iran's ring of fire, in a sense. They're the one entity, now Hamas, again, is at its tricks as the war is restarted, at least for a time, in Gaza. But the Houthis are the one entity left in Iran's ring of fire that is still consistently causing havoc and launching attacks. Now, Israel is still at war on 7 fronts, and the Houthis are an integral front for the Iranian regime. I mentioned Hamas. Some rockets have been seen over the past several days, heading towards Tel Aviv, towards Jerusalem. Thankfully, they went nowhere, intercepted, or fell into open fields. But it shows you that Hamas is not totally out. They're down. Oh, they're down like they've never been before, but they haven't been totally defeated. I believe that day is coming. I believe they signed their own death warrant on October 7, 2023. And that day is coming. Hezbollah as well in the north had been laying low for months, really hadn't done all that much since the ceasefire in Lebanon was agreed to in late November. Well, lo and behold, on Saturday, I think it was 5 to 7 rockets launched out of Lebanon at Israel. Hezbollah, of course, denied all culpability. Yeah, right. Israel responded. Well, they've responded in both cases, in Gaza and in Lebanon, with massive airstrikes, sending a message, taking out a top Hamas leader, a guy who was considered the prime minister of Hamas in Gaza, was taken out over the weekend. And Hezbollah as well, feeling the heat. But it gets back to my point. They don't utterly just stop. They don't cease and desist from their terror activities until you crush them. And if you don't, they'll rear their heads again. It's a relentless demonic evil. The only solution is to crush it so it can never, ever rise up again. And I believe Israel is in the process of doing that with Iran's Ring of Fire. It's not going to be overnight, but they're well on their way to doing exactly that. And to see the U.S. now chipping in with the Houthis is a good thing. But folks, we talk about this, and we talk about war on 7 fronts. We talk about terror attacks, sadly, and what Israel is facing, and what the people of Israel have faced. Our partner for today's live stream, our good friends at Magen David Adom, have been on the front lines of this fight since October 7th, really long before October 7th, but their role is expanded and intensified like never before since the October 7th massacre. Get this. They respond to every terror attack in Israel, every rocket attack, every drone attack, even heart attacks, car accidents. Magen David Adom, they are Israel's emergency services system. They are Israel's first line, front line, first responders. They are first on the ground, responding to every terror attack. Can you imagine? They dispatch every ambulance in Israel, every single ambulance, and they receive thousands of emergency calls every day, by the way, so they're busy. Yet it's a largely, I believe 90% are volunteers. They're literally doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're not getting paid for it. It's not a full-time job. They're volunteers. Yet they are Israel's emergency services system. You can support them and bless Israel by visiting SaveLivesIsrael.com. That's SaveLivesIsrael.com. Magen David Adom controls Israel's blood supply, not only for civilians, but for the IDF. It gives you an idea of how crucial this organization is. They dispatch the ambulances. And I'm in Israel frequently. They're everywhere. The Magen David Adom logo on the ambulances. Listen, the price they've paid, this volunteer force, 17 ambulances destroyed, over 30 people killed, 30 Magen David Adom volunteers killed since October 7th, doing God's work, blessing and protecting their fellow countrymen and women. And you can bless and protect them as well. SaveLivesIsrael.com, fulfill that biblical mandate laid out in Genesis 12:3 to bless the people of Israel in Israel's time of greatest need. How can you help? This is how you can help. SaveLivesIsrael.com. Right now, look, Magen David Adom needs more ambulances, bandages, medical supplies, and much more. Again, Israel's fighting a war on 7 fronts, ladies and gentlemen. They need all the help they can get. They need your help. God's land, God's people. Magen David Adom. SaveLivesIsrael.com for such a time as this. Speaking of what a time it is, folks, it is very hard to believe. But 1 year ago tomorrow, March 25th, 2024, we launched Stakelbeck Tonight, my nightly show on TBN. Now, if you know my journey a little bit, you've been with me on YouTube here over the years, you know that I'm an East Coast guy. Born and bred in Philadelphia, Northeast Philly, Fox Chase to be exact. Lived in New York City for about a year, close to a year. Lived in Washington, D.C., worked in D.C., lived just outside of D.C. for 17 years. Made a pit stop back in the Philadelphia area, and then came on down here to Texas. And the reason I came on down here was to host Stakelbeck Tonight for TBN. Now, it's my nightly show every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TBN. You can find it across your dial. Every major cable provider carries it here in America. It's the world's largest Christian television network. Also, TBN.org, TBN Plus. You can watch the show. If you love what you see here on the YouTube channel, you'll love our nightly show on TBN. It's got all the bells and whistles, by the way, that you can't quite do on a YouTube live stream, but B-roll, great interviews, graphics, great. It's a beautiful show and a beautiful set here in Texas. So Stakelbeck Tonight, check it out tomorrow night. 1 year down, fastest year of my life. Time flies when you're having fun and when you're very busy. I moved to Texas 2 weeks after October 7th. God's timing. And I haven't looked back ever since, covering that, covering the U.S. election, now covering the aftermath. Prophetic times, no doubt. I truly believe that. And one of the big chess pieces, obviously, is Iran. And we're talking about hitting the head of the snake vis-a-vis the Houthis and their leadership. The ultimate head of the snake resides in Tehran. And Naftali Bennett, a former Israeli prime minister, had a very interesting proposition today. He said every time the Houthis or Hamas, or I presume Hezbollah, anytime a member of that Iranian ring of fire launches a rocket or a missile at Israel, Israel should respond by striking Tehran, the Iranian capital, directly. Bennett has said this for years, and I've interviewed him several times. He's an impressive guy. He has said, look, I call it the head of the snake. He calls it the head of the octopus. He says an octopus, Iran is like an octopus with tentacles stretching out across the region. And he said, stop hitting the tentacles. Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen. I mean, hit them, but focus more on the head of the octopus, the head of the snake. That's Iran itself. And gotta say, folks, it makes a lot of sense. But Iran was largely able to avoid those kinds of consequences until Iran went too far. I mean, they've always gone too far, but they crossed a line when the Iranian regime, directly attacked Israel. Last April, nearly a year ago, some 300 ballistic cruise missiles and drones launched at Israel. And then October 1st of 2024, the largest ballistic missile attack in military history, 200 ballistic missiles launched at Israel. So that's a total of over 500 projectiles in 2 separate attacks launched by the Iranian regime against Israel. And that gave Israel the green light. They always had the green light, but Israel can now say, look, we're defending ourselves. They've attacked us directly, nation to nation. They didn't attack us through proxy this time, nation state to nation state. We must respond, and respond Israel did. And they destroyed Iran's air defenses back in late October. And if Iran's not going to call off the wolves, especially when it comes to the Houthis, they should feel the brunt. And we have a lot of things being floated out there right now. And I know that President Trump wants to give diplomacy one last chance with Iran. I get it. He can say, I did all I could. But folks, I don't see how this ends up anywhere other than military action against Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. No one wants to see it. But if they're not going to give up their pursuit of the bomb, and I don't believe they are, then there's no other way. Then again, I've said this for over a decade, well over, gosh, I've said it for 15 years, maybe. I mean, really, the Iranian nuclear crisis has been like the Cuban Missile Crisis in slow motion, as some have said. So this is over 20 years here. 22, 23. I mean, this is turn of the century. We've been talking about this. Iran's drive for a nuclear bomb, and people have been warning about it. Well, this is the year of reckoning, and it's all coming to a head. And a big part of that is that strong, decisive, bold leader, Donald Trump, back in office, who has common sense and who gets what Iran is all about. The Iranian regime, I should say, and it's nothing good. So with the air defenses eliminated, with the ring of fire severely weakened and not able to put up much of a fight anymore, Israel, and if it wants it, the United States, they both have a clear path to Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. And judging by some of the rhetoric from President Trump and his team and the actions we're seeing with the Houthis and what they're doing to the Houthis, Iran is in for a very rude awakening if it thinks it's going to hang on to its nuclear program. Now, in the very least, the United States will give Israel an enthusiastic green light to strike Iran's facilities, and most likely provide Israel with mid-air refueling planes, or the U.S. will help in that regard. Who knows, perhaps even some larger bunker-busting bombs than what the U.S. has already supplied to Israel. Does the U.S. get involved directly in a strike? We don't know yet, but the prospect of a nuclear Iran, unlike with Joe Biden, and unlike with Barack Obama, by the way, when Donald Trump says there won't be a nuclear Iran, you believe him. There's teeth. There's action. There's force behind it. Big difference. What a difference leadership makes. You know, it's been said, and I've said it here in the live stream, especially under Joe Biden, weak men, I mean weak men, create hard times. And we saw that here in America between 2021 and 2025 when Donald Trump took office once again. So the opportunity is there right now. And when we talk about holding Iran accountable, well, if you're going to hold Iran accountable for all the misery it has inflicted upon the region, I mean, every nation in the region practically, Israel chief among them, but misery upon the United States, misery upon its own people, first and foremost. The biggest victims of this wicked regime are the Iranian people. 46 years now since they came to power, a reign of terror. I believe it can't go on much longer. And I think with the nuclear program, final thought here, if that nuclear program is struck, and I believe it eventually will be, I don't see a way around it. I don't see the Iranian regime suddenly saying, okay, we're going to abandon our nuclear program. And that gets me to the rub here. Two scenarios that are good for the Iranian people and bad for the regime. First scenario, Iran does indeed abandon, it succumbs to pressure from Donald Trump, maximum pressure and threats, and the credible, keyword, credible use of force or threat of force. And they say, you know what? We're going to give it up. We're going to give the nuclear program up, like Gaddafi did back in 2003 in Libya. Well, if they do that, they're going to look so weak, not only to the jihadi community, but to their proxies, to the world at large, and to their own people. And the Iranian people might say, wow, they're weakened. Let's rise up. That's one scenario. Second scenario, they don't give up the nuclear program. The inevitable happens and the nuclear program is struck with airstrikes and other kinds of strikes and destroyed. They again look weak. And their own people say they're weakened. Let's rise up. So I think the outcome here, either way, whether they abandon the program and it's settled diplomatically with a true Iran nuclear deal that doesn't benefit the regime, or whether the sites ultimately end up being struck militarily, either way, I think there's a good chance the Iranian people rise up. Will they be successful? I'm not sure, but I pray that they will be. But either way, I think you're looking at a scenario where the regime is in great jeopardy. That's a great way to close it, because we like to end on a happy note, and that's a very good note, to see one of the world's most wicked regimes in big, big trouble. More, please. And God's on the throne, and that is a Bible land. Ancient Persia, modern-day Iran, Esther, Mordecai, Cyrus, Darius from your Bible. God's not done with Iran. I love the people of Iran, have so many Iranian friends and worked with so many Iranians on these issues over the years. What a great people, an ancient people, a proud people. And God is not done with Iran yet. Mark my words. Better yet, mark the word of God, because he's very clear about it. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. Remember, tomorrow, the one-year anniversary of Stakelbeck tonight. Until then, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.